When we think about open world games, most of us think of the big, pretty popular ones such as Red Dead Redemption 2, Elden Ring, and Ghost of Tsushima. Of course, these are incredible games and some of the best ever made, but there's also many open world games that have been released over the years which really haven't gotten the recognition that they deserved and remain underrated to this day. So that's why today I want to discuss a few of these extremely underrated open world games that all of you that are even a little interested in the open world genre need to play in 2024. Starting with the first game on this list, Mad Max is a game released in 2015 with an open world based on the Mad Max franchise. The open world in this game is a complete wasteland where pretty much everyone around this desolate world is insane, with even the protagonist being an empty shell with no emotion to anything or anyone in his surroundings. It's a pretty riveting world and story, and the game really emphasizes a particular importance on Max's vehicle, the magnum opus, being his best friend in this sad and depressing world. The game's open world is vast, with many outposts and areas to explore, and many features of this open world, from the architecture of the buildings, really build this image of a wasteland overtaken by the insane, where sanity isn't something you're ever going to see in this world. The vehicle is the main form of traversal around this large open world, and there's a bunch of vehicular-centric missions and even combat in the vehicle, which is easily one of my favorite parts of the entire game, as you can customize your vehicle in order to make it a powerful adversary against other vehicles in this desolate wasteland. The driving also just feels pretty good to control in this open world, and it makes the whole exploration side of this game pretty fun from all aspects. Another one of my favorite components of this game is the game's combat, which in particular is a focus on melee combat against enemies, although you do have a shotgun, but this isn't exactly something that will have a lot of ammo, and there's not too many guns in order to primarily use them within combat. Instead, Mad Max uses the Arkham style of combat in the counter-focus combat system, with various combos and finishers that make the game's melee combat super engaging and really fun throughout an entire playthrough. But it also does feel different in this regard, as the game's melee combat feels much slower and methodical than the Arkham games, which gives it this differentiating factor that makes it even more enjoyable. Overall, Mad Max is a super fun and enjoyable game with a great open world, a pretty interesting narrative, and engaging melee and vehicular combat. On to the next game on this list. Sleeping Dogs is another super underrated open world game, which has actually been getting a little recognition over the last couple of years, but still not enough for how great this game really is. In terms of the story of Sleeping Dogs, this was easily one of my favorite aspects of the entire game, as the game really had a well written and super riveting story. The game's story focuses on the journey of martial artist and undercover police officer Wei Shen, who infiltrates the Sun On Yee Triad organization in Hong Kong. Of course, I won't be going into any spoilers, but if you're looking for a great crime story set in a super interesting place in Hong Kong, Sleeping Dogs delivers that in absolute abundance. I didn't really know what to expect from the story going into this game, but the protagonist Wei Shen is an absolute standout and quite well written, and every cutscene within the game had me on the edge of my seat. The game also has a cast of greatly written side characters, which really accentuates this story and makes it an amazing story that you'll love as you play through the game. In terms of the open world here, this is Hong Kong itself, and the city in this game is absolutely mesmerizing, as you'll be able to travel around this expansive city with a variety of vehicles on the streets or by foot, and the detail in this open world is superb. From the neon lights to the little city stores set up in these tighter alleys and streets, where most importantly you can buy a pork bun, the open world in this game has so much character, and you'll have an absolute blast traversing across this open world and discovering all that this city has to offer. In terms of the combat in this game, by pure coincidence, the game's combat system is also reminiscent of the Arkham style combat, just like how we discussed in Mad Max, but this game's melee combat is much more brutal with its finishers and is much more fast paced than what we discussed earlier. The game's finishers and environmental takedowns in particular are absolutely brutal, but it makes this game's combat system that much more engaging and satisfying, and is a clear standout among other games that also utilize this style of combat. I do believe there is the ability to use guns in the game, however this isn't really a feature much promoted in the game. Other than that, the game also has a bunch of other activities you may engage in, such as the karaoke bar, street racing, and even joining a fight club. Overall, Sleeping Dogs is one of the best open world games out there, with a riveting story and combat system, and a unique and extremely detailed open world that you'll have an absolute blast in exploring. On to the last game on our list, we have Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Wildlands, which I'll just be referring to in the rest of this section as simply Wildlands. This game is one of my favorite open worlds by far. Starting of course with the story of the game, this game's story honestly isn't that great, and isn't really a selling point for the game at all, and instead really is just a vehicle to set up the particular missions within this game, and the overall cast of characters and the plot being conveyed in this game isn't that great, and is really just okay at best. What is great about this game though, is its vast and diverse open world, and its absolutely riveting yet tactical gameplay. Firstly, the open world of this game is gigantic, and you'll have flat areas of desert, snowy mountains, little towns and cities, and so much more in this open world, as this game's open world is one of the most expansive I've seen in an open world game. Of course, to traverse such a large open world, the game has an impressive selection of vehicles to traverse the game's roads, mountains, skies, and rivers. You've of course got cars, bikes, boats, and helicopters, and even planes as well, which makes traversing this open world a super diverse and engaging experience throughout your entire playthrough. There are many areas to explore in this open world, from the small towns to the larger ones, to the snowy mountains, to the desert, and so much more. You'll never ever get bored traversing and exploring the open world of this game. Now for the actual moment-to-moment gameplay, this is my favorite part of the entire game. Ghost Recon has always been known as a more tactical game, and you can do that here as well, as you've got yourself and 3 other NPC teammates who can be told to sync their shots with you, or will shoot at enemies when you give them the command. You've got so many tactical tools, from drones to night vision goggles to binoculars, allowing you to scope the area before you infiltrate it. The game's customization of weapons is also vast, with a large variety of weapons in the game, and also attachments in addition to a large arsenal of tools that can help you level the playing field against a larger group of enemies. But if you don't feel like going under the suspense of night and tactically taking down all of your enemies in a slow and methodical fashion, you can also just rush in there with a car and your teammates, or simply guns blazing, and this option can also work as long as you take cover and watch the health of yourself and your teammates. Overall, Wildlands is a superb open world experience, and especially if you've got friends to play this game with, I recommend it immensely, and it may be my favorite game on this list by far. With that, those are some of the most underrated open world games that you all need to play in 2024 if you haven't already. If you enjoyed this video and would be interested in a video covering more games under the same topic, or even games in another genre, for example underrated RPGs, comment down below and I'll be sure to make that happen. Anyway, that's all from me for today's video. I hope you all did enjoy it, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.